It's 2 a.m. and you're staring at your phone with that familiar knot in your stomach. You've just ended another emotionally draining relationship. And once again, you promised yourself, this time will be different. But somehow, it never is. Different person, same confusion, same emotional exhaustion. At some point, it's easy to believe you're cursed, or that all the emotionally healthy people are already taken. But psychology offers a very different and far more hopeful explanation. From a psychological perspective, the people we're drawn to are rarely random. They often follow a hidden emotional map, one drawn long before the first date ever happened. In this video, we'll explore why your internal relationship compass may be pointing toward unhealthy dynamics, why emotionally healthy partners can feel boring or even suspicious at first, and most importantly, how that compass can be retrained, so relationships stop feeling like survival and start feeling like fulfillment. Because the truth is simple, you are not broken, you're just operating with an old map. And today, the process of drawing a new one begins. Let's start by clearing up a common misconception. You're not a magnet for toxic people. What's far more accurate is this. Your brain is wired to recognize, choose, and tolerate what feels familiar. Even when that familiarity is painful, one of the brain's primary goals is safety. And strangely enough, it often equates familiar with safe, even when the familiar environment involved chaos, emotional distance, or inconsistency. If you grew up walking on eggshells, calm relationships may feel unsettling. If emotional unpredictability was normal, stability can feel oddly uncomfortable. Your nervous system isn't broken, it's simply conditioned. It may be more alert, more engaged, and more activated in high-stress emotional environments because that's what it learned early on. Some psychologists refer to this pattern as repetition compulsion, the tendency to unconsciously repeat unresolved relational dynamics in an attempt to gain a different outcome. The hope is often unconscious. Maybe this time, I'll finally feel chosen. Maybe this time, I'll be enough. But instead of healing the past, the same emotional wounds are often reopened. To understand how this map was drawn, we have to look at the blueprint of how you first learned to connect, your attachment style. These patterns are strongly connected to something called attachment style, the relational blueprint formed through early interactions with caregivers. While attachment styles are not permanent and can change, they often influence who we're drawn to and what feels emotionally normal. If you have an anxious attachment style, you may carry a deep fear of abandonment. Intense early attention, sometimes called love bombing, can feel incredibly soothing at first. But when that affection becomes inconsistent, your nervous system may go into overdrive. The cycle of closeness and withdrawal creates emotional intensity, reinforcing the urge to chase, fix, or hold on tighter. This dynamic can unintentionally reward unhealthy behavior while exhausting the person experiencing it. If you lean avoidant, you may have learned early that relying on others wasn't safe. Independence became protection. You might be drawn to emotionally chaotic partners because their instability creates distance. As long as you're managing their crises, you don't have to fully expose your own vulnerability. This often leads to a push-pull dynamic where closeness feels risky and true emotional intimacy remains just out of reach. Disorganized attachment often develops when caregivers were both a source of comfort and a source of fear. As an adult, this translates into relationships that feel intense, unpredictable, and emotionally volatile. Because the nervous system was conditioned to believe that conflict is intertwined with connection, calm and consistent relationships can feel unfamiliar or even empty. For those with this pattern, love is experienced as a constant state of high alert, a permanent feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop. For many people, these attachment patterns are paired with a trauma-based survival response known as the Fawn response. If you grew up in a tense or emotionally unpredictable environment, you may have learned that staying safe meant keeping others happy. You became highly attuned to moods, learned to minimize your needs, and prioritized harmony over honesty. As an adult, this often shows up as chronic people-pleasing, over-apologizing, and difficulty asserting boundaries. Unfortunately, emotionally unhealthy individuals tend to recognize this pattern quickly, not consciously, but intuitively. To someone who benefits from control or imbalance, excessive niceness can look like permission. There's a difficult but important truth in psychology. We don't accept the love we want. We accept the love that aligns with how we see ourselves. If you carry a deep belief that you are too much, not enough, or difficult to love, you may unconsciously dismiss people who treat you well. When someone offers consistent respect and care, it can create cognitive dissonance, a mental discomfort caused by a mismatch between how you see yourself and how you're being treated. That discomfort may cause you to label healthy partners as boring, suspicious, or emotionally unexciting. If you were taught, directly or indirectly, that love must be earned, then love that comes freely may not feel real. Boundaries are not walls meant to isolate you. They're gates, and you decide who gets access. Emotionally unhealthy people often test boundaries early. It may be subtle, a dismissive joke, showing up late repeatedly, pushing intimacy faster than you're comfortable with. When these moments are ignored or rationalized, the message received is that limits are flexible. Over time, small boundary violations compound, and by the time behavior becomes clearly toxic, the gate is no longer standing. Breaking the cycle is not about becoming hyper-vigilant or obsessively scanning for red flags in others. That approach only keeps a person stuck in a state of fear. Real change happens internally, by healing the patterns that taught the nervous system to confuse chaos with connection. This is the most important shift. When meeting someone and feeling an intense, overwhelming spark, pause, breathe. That rush isn't always chemistry. Often it is the nervous system recognizing a familiar pattern of emotional unpredictability. Healthy relationships usually feel very different at the start. They feel calmer, steadier, less urgent. That absence of intensity doesn't mean the connection is shallow. It means the body is finally experiencing safety. What once felt boring may actually be peace. And peace can feel unfamiliar, even threatening, when a life has been lived in survival mode. There is a question that changes everything. Instead of asking, does this person like the self? Or is the self enough for them? Ask this. How is the feeling when being with them? Is there a sense of being grounded or anxious? Is there a feeling of being seen or of being constantly evaluated? Is the energy replenished or emotionally drained? This shift pulls focus away from the need for external approval and brings it back to self-awareness. That awareness alone filters out many unhealthy dynamics. These patterns were not innate. They were learned, often early, as ways to survive emotionally unpredictable environments. They were once adaptive. They once provided protection, and anything learned can be unlearned. With time, awareness, and self-compassion, the internal compass can be recalibrated. This is not because something is broken, but because a survival system is finally being updated. When chaos no longer feels like home, the cycle ends. Naturally, quietly, and for good. The cycle of toxic relationships feels imprisoning because it convinces you that you're powerless. But the truth is this: the power to change has always been internal. Breaking the cycle isn't about finding the perfect partner. It's about becoming someone who is no longer compatible with unhealthy dynamics. You are not broken. You're simply operating with an old map, and you can draw a new one. Which of these patterns felt most familiar to you? Share in the comments. Your experience might help someone else feel less alone. If you found this video helpful, give it a like to help others discover these insights. Share it with someone who could use a reminder about healthy relationships. And if you're passionate about self-empowerment and personal growth, subscribe for more content like this. Check out the video on screen now or explore the channel for even more tips and guidance. Thank you for watching.